Yeah, I got a feeling it may be an interesting conversation tonight.
Yeah.
Never know. I learned a new phrase today, so deciding whether to share it or not.
Why do you think it'll be interesting, Don?
Well, it was interesting to me. It doesn't mean it's interesting to everybody else.
Gotcha. Good morning, sir.
How you doing, Ron? Good morning.
I'm doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
Not too bad.
Good.
Taking a couple days off, making some inroads into things I should have been fixing earlier.
Yeah, me too. I'm taking a few days off too,
The winter.
like until April.
Good evening,
Yeah.
everybody.
Hey, Dennis.
Hello.
Yeah, I took last week off and went for a hike in the woods.
You know, I was going to ask you about your Appalachian Trail adventure.
We set out to do 77 miles this time. We only ended up doing 38.6 in 4 days.
39.6, I think.
Oh, 39.6. My sister just corrected me.
Good.
It was still. Back in 2016, we did 675 miles.
Wow. So how much of it have you accomplished?
75 plus 40. That's one.
No, we also did McAfee Knob and Dragon's Tooth. Okay.
So 675 plus 40. 715.
715, somewhere around there.
And is it contiguous and you just keep going back, or is it just hopping around?
Not for me. For my sister, she's been doing it continuous. So when she goes back out, she'll get back on where we came off this time. I may or may not go back with her again. This time I I really wish I had the motorcycle out there. Because that Blue Ridge and some of the roads we drove were absolutely amazing.
But you can't ride the motorcycle on the trail.
No, it's foot traffic only.
Yes. We have, we've walked probably, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 miles just in this area because it's like within a couple miles. And it's our goal to get back out there, but we always find something else to do.
Yeah, it's gorgeous out there. I got some great pictures. If you want to ever check out our journey, you can look up my page on Facebook, A Hike with My Sister.
Gotcha. So what's on everybody's minds tonight?
We have a new retiree among us.
A new retiree? Who? What?
How do I become one of those?
You spend your life dedicated to the military.
Yeah, Don, she's talking about me. I just signed out on my transition leave
Congratulations, Chris. That's pretty awesome.
on Tuesday. So, yeah.
Do you feel any different?
No, not really, because actually the last 5.5 months I've been doing nothing but motorcycle training, so it's all good.
Yeah, but now you don't have to ask permission for a long weekend.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Looks like your hair's getting longer already.
Yeah.
I cut it about 2 weeks ago. I think that was the last time I cut it. So, I used to cut it every 2 weeks religiously, and Don, you've been there before, so I don't know what I'm going to do now. But I've definitely grown a beard. That's for sure.
So I managed the beard for quite a while, and I just decided to do something new. So even that gets old. But since 1985, I've had some sort of facial hair, even in the military. So I prided myself on being kind of a maverick and having a mustache, you know, albeit sometimes it kind of looked like Hitler, you know. I didn't fully buy into that part.
I totally get that, but that was mine. Mine doesn't look good. Mustache alone looks much better when I can grow more beyond that, whether it be goatee or beard or something. But yeah, I enjoyed life, and now it's time for a new adventure. So I'm
Well,
taking up the next month and doing a whole lot of nothing since riding season's starting to wind down, and then I don't know what's next, but I'm sure I'll figure it out.
you will, and it'll probably be surprisingly fun.
But thank you, Rita, for making me speak. I appreciate that.
Hit or miss, hit or miss.
She's good at that sometimes.
Just sometimes, Carol.
I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. So who's going to bring up the elephant in the room? The three-wheel.
Before we go there, because I've thought about this a lot in the last week, or the last several days. Let's not add to the confusion by making assumptions. I mean, unless we were there or we have firsthand knowledge, I feel a little bit rough around the edges. I mean, we can talk about the topic, but let's make no assumptions, simply because I know I wasn't there to see what happened or what did it, and tough day. Certainly if it gets us thinking about it, that's probably a good thing. So now go ahead, Carol. I'm sorry. I wanted to let's be cautious about how deep we go with this.
Well, what I'd like to say, and hopefully it's advice to others, our cards and our curriculum are all written towards a standard motorcycle. So when I'm teaching the classes, I do cover all that information, but then I take extra time and I cover the controls on the RTs and the Rykers, because that's what we have in our classroom or in our class and what we have available to us. And one of the big things that I always start, and I start this in the classroom, if by chance you ever feel uncomfortable on that motorcycle, roll off the throttle and press the brake. I do the actions, start the actions right there in the classroom, and I have them do it as well. And then exercise 1, once again, it's geared towards standard motorcycles, and all of our motorcycles are the Can-Ams. So once again, I've had to modify the cards a little bit so that I'm speaking to the Rykers and the Can-Ams. And I do the same thing there. Show me the action you're going to do if you feel uncomfortable. And I have them do the actions right there in exercise 1 before they even start the motorcycles. And if that prevents just one, it's a good thing for us to do. I know it's hard for us, but I know Dennis had one accident in his class when we first started this.
Yeah, that was the very first class of the three-wheel at Big. Somebody had an accident on my class. And it, from what I remember, he lost control. He hit the fence. I think he hit somebody's bike, and he hit a company truck. It was a big St. Charles truck. But I don't think he was hurt. But the point is, like Carol said, I got to agree. Something like that, rolling off the throttle, pressing the brake pedal. Something to think about next time.
So what is it that makes these machines different from the other three-wheelers that there seems to be an issue?
I think with the Rikers, they are very, especially the 900s, they're very powerful, and a little twist on that throttle and they'll take off. We have looked into special training keys for them, and I got word from our boss today. He said he's talked with his person at Can-Am. They do have one, but it limits it to 12 miles per hour. And you know that we need them to get higher speeds. And they explained it that the training keys, you really have to go like half throttle in order for them to really start moving with the training key. So they really don't benefit. They're working on.
One of them is what they call a rental key, which my best guess is they don't want to let somebody go fast before they know they can operate them, and that's the one that only goes 12 miles an hour. The training key, you can get up to 60. It's just going to take you a little while.
Yeah, it's just slower on it's slower on the horsepower. Isn't that what we experienced? We tried it one time.
Yeah, but then the challenge with that is, like you were just saying, Carol, you get them used to having to roll on extra, and then they go jump on a different Can-Am that doesn't have that, and they're getting a handful of throttle, and it's taking off faster than they expect.
Yeah, we really just, I just really think that the key on them is start them early, understanding that they don't need that much throttle on these. Limit the amount of throttle on it.
Another couple things about the Rikers, at least from what I've been told, Mark, is that because they're automatics and there's no shifting, you can go from 0 to whatever speed rather quickly. And the typical motorcycle brake that you would have on the throttle side is not there. The brakes are taken care of only on your foot. So the roll off the throttle and apply the brake with the right hand is missing. So there's slight nuances that have a tendency.
Check one, check one. Oop, I'm not muted. This thing is supposed to mute me.
We still love you anyway, Robin. So
The other thing, really have to make sure they keep that flat wrist, because if they got that high wrist and they take off, they're only going to add that much more throttle. So you really got to coach them good on that flat wrist.
Okay, because the reason I ask is the only three-wheel classes I've ever been involved with are here at the Harley-Davidson dealership. So I'm teaching on someone with a bike that has a 2-liter engine in it, and even if they don't shift gears, they still are 0 to probably 30 and a lot less distance than we have runoff, definitely.
the automatics have a tendency to go a little bit more than 30. That's, I think, the biggest risk there.
Check one. Now it should be working properly. Yay.
Yeah, I haven't checked with any of our trikes to see where the rev limiter kicks in first gear, but I would think it's probably frighteningly fast on a 300-foot long range, though.
Well, constant velocity transmission, the more you roll it on, the faster it goes, and it just keeps on getting it. So like everybody said, it doesn't take long at all for it to pick up speed and maintain that speed, really. And when you roll off the throttle, there's a slight engine braking, but minimal. And the other thing is, when it comes to not having your front brake for your right hand, that's true, but a lot of the people that are learning to ride these things have never ridden anything at all. And so they should, let's hope, be used to using their right foot for the brake in their car. So, but there again, when it accelerates like that, what does your body do? It goes backwards. So you're trying to hold on to keep from falling off, which makes you roll on, whether you realize it or not, even more. So They're good machines, but there are definitely some nuances that you need to work with. What I do a lot of times is once they get the engine started, is have them keep it in park and roll the throttle on until and at certain point it'll start beeping because it's telling you
Yeah,
that
use the
parking
beep.
brake is still set. Yeah. So you got the beep there to have it. So then you have the student to back off that now that they know where the beep is at, and have them gently roll the throttle on again and raise the RPMs up, but keep it from beeping.
That basically is the equivalent of the friction zone use by
Yeah,
comparison,
exactly.
loosely.
Yeah. I mean, that does give them some semblance. It's not a true friction zone, but it gives them the gradual roll on that's needed to help try to control the throttle. So, and definitely anybody that's ever taught with them, you never stand in front of them. No, you do not stand in front of them.
Yeah, I've heard similar stories, and there's a site just a couple of miles from here that uses them. And I know they kept it very quiet, but earlier this year they had an absolutely spectacular crash with a Ryker, which apparently caused a lot of damage at the facility and completely ruined the machine. Fortunately, the rider had a fair number of injuries, but nothing life-threatening. But a few of the coaches I know from there say that they had actually stopped doing three-wheel classes when the Ryker became the machine of choice at their site. And so I was wondering what made it more of an issue than the gigantic trikes that I'm using here.
Well, one of the things on a standard trike is at least there you can coach them, squeeze that clutch in, because that clutch will disengage the power. On the Rykers and the Can-Ams, you don't have that luxury. And that's the big thing there. So it's either throttle or no throttle. And that's the big issue, I think, with most of these.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because even when a student panics and holds the throttle open and grabs the front brake, if they've got the clutch in, it's just noisy, but the machine still stops. But I could see where if, without having a clutch lever, if they hold the throttle open, there's, even applying the brake lever, it could probably keep moving.
Yep, it
All of a
can.
sudden, I'm having flashbacks from my childhood with mini bikes and centrifugal clutches without brakes. Go ahead, Rita. I'm sorry.
The engine will far overpower the brake on the Rykers. I'm not sure about the current Spider models, but my understanding is some of the Spider models, if you stand on the brake and roll on the throttle, it sends the machine into limp mode, and so it just slows down to nothing, but not so on the Rykers. The other thing is that with the CVT, the students continue to roll on until the motorcycle responds, whereas they really need to roll on until before the motorcycle responds and hold it at that spot and give the motorcycle a minute, because it takes a little bit for it to respond to the rolling on. There's a delay.
So it sounds like these are more complicated to control than like a standard Spider would be.
They're just
I mean, only by comparison, only by lack of exposure, you know?
yeah, they're just different. And as coaches, we need to be aware of the nuances of how to help the students have a good experience.
Just to chime in on the Rikers teaching the three-wheel, I have a limited amount of classes that I've taught this season, but of the ones that I did teach, I had little issue with any student really grabbing a lot of throttle before they realize they're going too fast or starting to lose control. And to apply the brake, it seems as if it was pretty efficient. It seems to be a different beast from the clutch trike, but at the same time, it's different. But for me, or for my limited teaching so far this season, the trike itself is simpler to teach because we don't have to worry about clutch control. We don't have to worry about anything like that. Our only main concern is the runaway trike, but it seems as if once they start moving, the first thing that they like is the control of rolling off to apply the brakes.
Thanks for your input, John. Appreciate that.
Okay, so yeah, this is making more sense to me now. I've not at this site at the Harley Davidson dealer, but at other sites, I've had students come through with scooters, and it does seem to take a while for them to get the knack of, like Rita mentioned, rolling on and then waiting a moment for the transmission to catch up, instead of where early on they sort of keep rolling on the throttle, expecting it to start going at some point, and generally having more power than expected when it finally grabs and goes. But of course, they're only generally dealing with about 15 horsepower. Plus, if they really have trouble, then they'll end up falling over instead of continuing to go until they hit something.
Dang it. So what else is on people's minds?
Well, I just rode the Sisters today, the Twisted Sisters down here in Kerrville.
How was that?
It was a good day. It was a good day. Seems like 336 and 337. Is that Kelly Howard? Oh, I just said motorcycle safety, Texas, careful, certification, don't overcoach, don't undercoach, coaching, Kelly Howard. That's what I said. No, it was great. 336 to 335 and 336, they just threw down a new bed of tar and large gravel. And so it feels like I'm riding on a rubber floor. But I got internet. Those don't connect, do they? Those don't really line up. It was a good ride. So I went riding, and now I've got some barbecue in my hand.
You must be in Texas.
I am in Texas.
And look, we got Josh Bumpus jumping in tonight.
What's up, Josh?
Hey, everybody.
The missing link.
I know. Been doing 60, 70-hour work weeks, so kind of had to take a break where I needed. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was predisposed, I guess, at the time that we were having Tribe Talk.
Like always, you know, when you can make it, it's great. And if you can't, sorry about that, but we understand. We understand. So earlier I was talking about a phrase that I read about today, and it's called epistemic trust. Has anybody ever heard that before? Epistemic trust.
Totally not Googling that. You're going to have to move on.
All right.
No, but I bet Safety Sam knows about it.
Yeah, what is it?
Sam. What? Who's Safety Sam? I don't know.
I just realized what she's talking about. Yeah, Rita will explain. I'm not touching that.
It's like you've got the angel and the devil on your shoulders there, Don, but you have Safety Sam on one shoulder.
Where's the devil?
I remembered something I wanted to mention though, if I may interject for 1 second. About last time I was on Tribe Talks, I was talking about coaching in Texas. And I think what I said was we were discussing trying to recruit new coaches. And I went on and on about, trying to deliver the message that invites them to do it and then asking them to pay to learn how that's going to be touch and go. We don't have to stay on this topic, but I got something wrong. So it was when I went to coach in front of Kelly Howard, that's when they got the freebie out of me, even though it wasn't that great of I didn't do that great of a job anyhow. So the observation is when you're going to do the job, but you got to bring an observer in, and that's who's getting paid for the course. It's their class. They're trusting you to coach it, watching how you do. So where I'm actually employed, I had to observe every range and got half pay until I was certified. And then it was time for me to leave. But I had some really nice expensive shirts to take with me. So yeah, so now that correction is made. And it's really good to see Kelly Howard too. So hopefully I'm gonna get to ride with that guy now that I'm in town.
Okay, I'm completely lost now. Thanks, Robin.
No, I didn't lose you. No, Kelly
No,
Howard.
I'm just easily distracted.
Oh, no, you were talking about something colonoscopy learning or something like that. It was colonoscopy learning.
Yeah, I had one of those about 3
Epistemic
weeks ago.
Trust.
Those are fun.
So have you heard it, Lynn? I mean, you pronounced it really well.
I just copied you.
Oh.
I've never heard of it before.
So it's basically the roots of knowledge, or where the knowledge comes from. And it's the specific kind of trust that's necessary by someone to allow learning, meaning that there's an authenticity between the person passing the knowledge to the person receiving the knowledge. And epistemic trust happens when there is personal relevance to the learner, meaning that it's allowing the learning to happen. They find interest in it. And then it's also identified as social learning, meaning that the more people involved and the more trust that's developed within a group, the learning happens. And by the way, it is also the best way to pass a cultural message of how learning should happen or what should be learned. So what do you think the significance was to me attaching to this phrase, epistemic trust?
Well, I mean, our whole BRC updated, the level 2 classroom really is about getting riders to buy into wanting to be safe on their own account, because they put value on it. And I think the coaches have a lot to do with that. That they get that interest, and it's not just someone up there lecturing them about, hey, do this, be safe. You have to give the subject value so that they want to do it.
Yeah, but then what does that have to do with the trust side? So am I safe to say that basically you're getting into how somebody who's interested in learning something, turning to somebody who's knowledgeable, or at least able to express knowledge on a topic, how they're trusting that information coming from the instructor?
I think it means there has to be a relationship between the two of them. And relationships don't happen with people just telling. Like, I'm just telling right now this new phrase of epistemic trust. What I say about epistemic trust, you decide whether it's relevant to you, whether I am a subject matter expert that can share this knowledge with you, and whether I'm authentic at all trying to pass knowledge, or I'm just like being, the smart ass or the guy who knows stuff trying to impart wisdom on the world.
That job's already taken. I'm right here, man. Come on.
Well, you're correct. That job is already taken. But it gets back to the authenticity of the person, you know. It's easy to read it out of a book and just say it to somebody else. Whether anybody else attaches to it, student learns from it. It takes an amount of trust to make that happen. So I thought it was just an interesting phrase. And I'm going to blame Betsy Kusia on that one, even though she's not here. Because she got me into the book. I'm not sharing it yet.
Don, did I understand you to say that basically when the learning is more social, that's the best way to convey cultural information?
It is, and I'm so glad you picked up on that. What do you think about it?
Because that tells me that we're doing level 2 exactly the right way, because isn't what we're trying to impart basically a culture of safety through level 2 material, and we're trying to do it through social interactions between the students and the instructors.
Absolutely. And more importantly, or the better way, is for the instructor to allow it to happen amongst the students and just guide or facilitate the learning with as little talk as possible.
Right.
I've just Googled it, and the definition I got talks about the individual's willingness to consider new knowledge. In contrast, its mistrust is characterized by inflexible thinking patterns and difficulty to learn from a social environment.
Did anyone catch the, I think it was a YouTube video that Ralph Russo posted on Retsorg, I think last week?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was a good illustration of both how the BRC classroom is supposed to be going, and also after I circulated it around to my coaches, I think it helped them to understand that this wasn't something that was just made up, that it's actually a widespread practice.
I think Ralph's video was awesome. I would like to see Ralph show up here and help us and be part of the track.
I think he's been around before, just I haven't noticed him recently, but I'm not always able to make it here just because of the time of day that it works out for me.
And that's understood. And like I said earlier, you know, when you can make it, you make it. But we certainly do have some people that show up, you know, regularly or semi-regularly. And, you know, it adds to the conversation. Having, you know, even Kelly did the quick Google tonight to add some more information that was important to Epistemic Trust. And did anybody not trust Kelly when he provided us that information? Besides you, Robin. And so that's what I'm kind of getting at. You know, this is social learning too. Us just hanging out and talking. And how much do you walk away with when you come to Tribe Talks? You know, there's always a good topic to certainly spur on some learning or definitely thought. Maybe not learning, but certainly deeper thought. And so whenever I think about student or teacher-student relationships, I think about rider-coach-student relationships, but I automatically also think about rider-coach-trainer to rider-coach relationships. And whenever we talk about rider-coach-trainer to rider-coach relationships, I'm always thinking about how do I look at it from a rider-coach to a student, or even better, if I'm the student, looking at the teacher, how does it all relate? So do you ever go that direction when we start talking about things, looking at how the different perspectives interact?
I think some of this ties in with our conversation last week with Duncan. We touched on culture and phrasing and the different interpretations people have when they hear the same sentence or the same statement. So we have to be mindful of our dialogue, what we say, and to ensure that the message is interpreted evenly throughout our class, because we get students from all walks of life, all occupations, all locations, and that adds to the challenge of this epistemic trust. That's do the students pick up that we are authentic? And if they do, then yeah, they buy in, and they'll probably perform a little better. And by the way, I do have Ralph's number since he's in my state, so I can give him a little nudge and see what happens.
Well, when you talked about the mistrust, you know, my brain went to, well, what actions or behaviors do rider coaches have, some of them maybe, that create the mistrust, you know, kind of talking the talk but not walking the walk, you know, and students notice everything, you know. So I'm thinking, I can think of an instance where a coach showed up. He wasn't teaching that day, but he showed up on the range and he wasn't wearing full gear. And I said to him, you know, when you ride up here without your gear on, it makes the rest of us look like we're talking out of our butts, because you're kind of saying one thing and doing something else. And it's kind of what we're talking about. So, you know, I'm going to have to think and apply that on the trainer level now, and, you know, see if there's some behaviors that filter down that maybe aren't so good.
Well, and I'm thinking farther back. I'm thinking that the way that we as a community reacted to the Motorcycle Safety Foundation when the BRC, the first version, was introduced. That there wasn't a lot of acceptance and trust. There was a great deal of resistance. And you know, how did that reflect on what we as a community thought of the Motorcycle Safety Foundation when that occurred?
I like the word you brought up, Mark, of resistance. Why do people resist new things?
One of my friends here, a rider coach that I recruited years ago, he did not update. We just updated to the BRCU. And his reasoning was it was just too much touchy-feely.
Does it need to be a hockey match, or? Our initiation in this class is, what you hold still, I'm going to jack you square in the teeth. And then I'll know that you're truly interested.
So if he was resistant because it was too touchy-feely, how does he feel about it now?
Yeah, he doesn't teach at all. He dropped out, did not make the update.
Okay.
I think it's fear of failure.
Okay, that's one of the words I had written down here based off of what Kelly just said, fear. What else is it? When something's new and you resist it, there's fear of failure, but what else is there?
Change.
Change.
Change, okay.
Resistance also comes from fear of the unknown.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Exactly. Exactly what I was going to say too.
So how about just not fully understanding what is out there? That you're talking about a fear of the unknown. There's a lack of understanding to the benefits or the non-benefits of making the change. And so before we even open ourselves up to it, here we are talking vulnerability again, vulnerable to change, we put up the barrier because of fear. How do we get over that?
Let the past go. That was the biggest thing when we transitioned. If the rider coaches would have just come in with an open mind from the get-go, there would have been less resistance, and they probably would have accepted it a lot better. Because as we got to it, I mean, now they love it.
Yeah, sometimes I'd call it false beliefs. Some people believe a certain thing in their mind, and they can't look outside the box. They're kind of stuck in this box that, well, why would they take this out? Or why did they change this? And not even trying to look at the reasons why, or believing in something new that's, been field tested and out there. They just kind of shut their own mind down to say, well, I'm mad that this is gone. They don't really realize the hows or whys, or want to realize the hows or whys of why things have changed. In Massachusetts, when we transitioned, we lost some coaches also. And I think it was all those reasons, fear of failure, having to learn something new after doing something for so long. But I do believe there was some that also had that closed-mindedness, I guess is how I'd best word it.
Well,
Were you done?
Sorry. I think we kind of come in though, the curriculum gets presented when you're a new coach, you get trained that this is the standard, and you kind of believe in this is the standard, and then they come and change it. And maybe coaches aren't prepped enough to have the idea that the curriculum is sort of a living entity, and that changes will happen as new information comes along and new studies and adult learning. There's been a shift, in the last 20 years on how people learn, and that information is now out there, and more training programs are going to an adult learning model. So maybe maybe the trainers need to prepare the coaches for the fact that, hey, you know what, this is the current standard now, but down the line, there may be changes, improvements made, to what we are experiencing.
Lynn, I was going to say that there's also the matter of the scientific method. It's like if we're informed if we're informed enough that we can explain why a change is made, that'd be a lot of fun to be able to do just anyhow. I mean, it's all based on data. It's all based on conclusions and control groups and safety-based theories that are then put to practice. So if a trainer were able to tell me, and this has happened to me one time, I didn't mind the transition at all, I didn't mind the change, but if a trainer were able to inform me, this became this because we discovered yada, data shows this, anything that clues us into why a certain thing needs to happen in a certain way, I mean, the more we know, right? Don't anybody sing it.
So if you really look at learning theory and how is it that students learn best, it's embedded in the bedrock of trust and credibility. Trust in the facilitator, credibility in the curriculum, trust in the processes that you go through during the learning process. So if you have trust and credibility, then I think that helps alleviate some of those initial fears of the unknown and what is this going to look like. So those two things need to be in place, whether we're talking about the students on the range, whether we're talking about the new coaches learning from a trainer, whatever.
Don, I think we all need more mindfulness practice.
There is, that's pretty good.
One of the most interesting things I learned when I was prepping for our discussion on mindfulness with this group was that it reduces implicit bias. And maybe that'll help reduce the bias you have against this unknown, untested, uncertain new way
Yeah, and so I remember we did that in the WebEx meeting, Nicole, and that was pretty freaking rocking. But it also, if you jump back to the fact that we're also in need of coaches, then trying to figure out ways to keep the coaches we have by convincing them they shouldn't. I'm sorry, I'm putting words in your mouth here, but like convincing them they shouldn't be have the information reinforced, the reasoning. We're still once again not doing ourselves any favors. They're not getting the information they might desire to keep, remain the coaches, and then we've just shot ourselves in the foot by convincing them, hey, you shouldn't need that reinforcement. Okay, bye. I'm no longer a coach. You've lost another one.
I'm not saying it's an either or thing.
Okay. Sorry, I hope I didn't overstep my ground.
No, you're fine.
Cool.
So I was about to tell Paul I could give you a hug because, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So long distance hug for Paul, wherever you are. Where are you, Paul?
Right outside Rochester, New York.
Oh,
You touchy-feely.
don't be pointing at yourself, Ron. Don't believe it. I don't believe it. So, I mean, whenever you have anxiety or stress, what happens to your body?
You tense up.
You tense up, okay. What else?
Shut down.
Shut down.
Stop
All right.
breathing.
You get into
Stop breathing.
a fight or fight state.
Okay. So your body produces a drug or a hormone actually called cortisol, which increases the anxiety, as Christopher says, because of the fight or flight from the amygdala. So, that's why many of the things in the curriculum are designed to be fun, serious fun, and the atmosphere is supposed to be relaxed. And the people that are the subject matter experts should be easily approachable and talk with everybody. So it's amazing how epistemic trust can be a part of all these things we're talking about when it comes to training. How the mind works, how the body works, how people learn, how the curriculum is passed on. And if we aren't able to accept that as coaches when we're learning new things and we're resistant to it, how does that make us when we're looking at students? Does that make us authentic?
That was one of the things that we had several coaches here in Illinois state when we went through the transitional update. I can't produce this product because I'm not seen as the expert because I can't lecture, and they couldn't let go of that. And, that was just a big thing.
That is the simplest form right there, to give up the way of lecture to allow the students to react and come up with the conclusions instead of us constantly giving things to them. That's the way I've seen it in my short 9 years, that when I give them the conclusion, when I give them the thought and ask them to do with this new curriculum for us as rider coaches, how to facilitate, they come up with it pretty easily, and it seems as if as the group itself, especially if it's more than 2 students, that they come up with it, they work with each other, and they know the new curriculum or the new way of being not only told, but they know they'll have to come up with the conclusion themselves. Gets them thinking about safety, gets them thinking about their riding habits, and to me, that's job well done for me, because I know now
Priority one, yeah.
right, I have the students doing it for themselves, and the questions that they ask me are the ones that I can either answer or, what do you think, class? I just keep it at the most basic level. Instead of talking, give them 1.5 and get out of there and let the students come up with the conclusion.
Did anyone have the experience? I find that sometimes students, based on comments they make afterwards, I wonder what their mindset was coming into the class, because I've had a number of students say, oh, you made this really fun. I was really dreading coming here, because I think in their mind, they thought it was going to be a kind of dry, didactic, fire hose.
The DMV.
And they had fun. But I'm surprised in a way sometimes at how many students express surprise that they had fun.
Yes.
I think, maybe in their heads, they thought it was going to be something else.
Well, just think about it. My upbringing in learning was sitting and listening. Read the book, do what the book says. And it becomes boring after a few classes. So we give a different experience. We keep their minds into it, they're active within the class itself. And I love it as well when the student goes, this has been nothing I expected, or this is not what I expected. Because they're thinking, sit down, learn this any way you can, and either you get it or you don't.
I've also noticed too with the curriculum and the way we do it now is the students really bond as a group a lot more than they ever have. I don't know if anybody else has the problem, but lately it seems that they don't want to leave at the end. They're just enjoying it so much. I mean, they really bond as a group. It's amazing.
They exchange numbers. They come up with their own little, motorcycling club. And isn't that the point? To get them to learn more when they're outside of the class, to be a safer style of rider.
My last class in Wisconsin, they wouldn't leave, and so I started talking about the other curriculums and some other stuff that we do there, and the track environment, all that stuff. I said, look, I'm going to start talking, and when you guys walk away, the last person standing, once you're gone, I'll stop. I did, and they just, one by one, they would just turn around and just kind of fade away. It worked out. Started talking about freaking jellies and jams. Didn't even matter.
So to get back to that phrase, and we're talking about them taking on the learning, they have identified that it has relevance to them. They're allowing the learning to happen because we're giving it to them. If we're doing it right, we're doing very little but giving them the opportunity and making sure that they're on the track. We've developed that trust, and they've realized the social aspect of riding. Hopefully, if they haven't been exposed to it before, are they then able to take that culture wherever they go and do the same thing?
They should absolutely be able to do that.
What could be the outcomes of that?
Well, I mean, how often, when you track, where did you hear about us? It's word of mouth, more than advertising and other stuff. It's people talking to other people about their experience in the class. I took this class and it was awesome. I had some people in my class this past weekend who had been referred by friends who took the class 6 years ago. And they're still talking about, what a great experience it was and how much they learned and, turning people onto it. So yeah, I think it can definitely spread from the seeds that we plant in the class.
Yeah, I had the same student twice this year. They came the second time, and I'm like, you look familiar. They're like, oh yeah, I brought my cousin and my other cousin and this cousin, and I figured I'd take it one more time because I figured I need more practice and I'll pick more stuff up. And I'm like, hey, that's great.
Isn't that the
You
kind of
failed me
mindset
last time.
we're looking for? And so this gets to what I talked about when I first talked about the phrase epistemic trust. It's a culture shift. And if you're impacting them in the way that they're sending other people, or they're taking that out to other people and saying, hey, you should really do this, is that not a cultural shift that we're we're starting to process by doing things the way we do. And so in what other cultures, riding cultures, can we start to initiate this change of behavior to reduce the crash statistics? How else do we implement this? How do we market what we're doing here in the BRCU, beyond the BRCU, to get different groups in and to expand the knowledge and make it a cultural shift? Dennis has decided to do the Ron.
Well, you know, we have a, I forget the name of it now, I won't get it right, but it's something like the New York State Traffic Highway Safety something, you know, has a conference every year. You know, and I've said that we really should do a presentation. Of course, everything got COVID sidelined, but, you know, we really should do a presentation about our level 2 classroom. So the people that are there who are in law enforcement, or maybe they're in the judicial end, you know, passing judgment on people who've done a thing, and could direct them to a course, you know, instead of implementing a penalty, so that they see how we're trying to change rider behavior through the activities we have in the class versus just, here, this is how you ride the motorcycle. You know, I thought that would be a good avenue to get that information out amongst that circle. And they have, you know, it's a lot of law enforcement, education, to some extent, you know, structural engineers and stuff, but they've got a what's the word I'm looking for? They've got an audience that spreads, you know, into this environment, and maybe that our message could help spread out to that as well.
Well, we're going to try that this year. We're going to do our OPREC, our Oklahoma Rider Coach Education Conference, during our Highway Safety Summit. And so I'll tell you how it goes, because everybody's invited if they want to come. So.
I know here in the New England area, there's a group called New England Riders, and they're run basically by somebody that took some classes and really got into the training and the learning aspect and the lifelong learning. And it's really spread. They, as a group, do a lot of promoting motorcycle safety, wearing good gear. They're doing non-sport bike track days. They're doing, you know, Ride Like a Pro, some other stuff. They're into some of the stuff that Ken Condon's doing as well, some of his on-street stuff. And they're 12,000 members strong. And I think even the students we have, because they have such a great experience, hopefully will be mentors to the sport or to the safety aspect. And some of them, you know, slowly we're hopefully spreading or changing the culture little by little.
Just a kid with you for a second here, Josh. So what's the name of the group? Wait, where are you based in?
Massachusetts.
And what are they called?
New England Riders.
Okay. Where do they get the name from? Just curious.
I'm not sure. Well, being in New England. Yeah.
But no, that does sound pretty cool. I mean, just being in an environment where you got solid riders that have a little bit of influence, who want to keep getting to be better riders, convincing others to take the next, you know, here, you take this spot on that knowledge podium, I'll move up to the next one, hang out. You know, that's a hard message to send, but people are, if they're able to do it, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they promote it every single day on Facebook. Like there's safety aspect posts, or they'll start conversations kind of like we do. Well, they'll throw something out there and say, okay, what are some of the common misconceptions, or, you know, what do you think the causes of crashes are? And they just have these conversations all the time. And because of the name New England Riders, people find them on Facebook all the time that are motorcycle riders in this area. They end up signing up, and they kind of see what that culture is, and hopefully they either start thinking about it a little bit, or maybe some of them disappear, but they're growing all the time.
So this may sound a little bit odd, but I think it fits both with what Lynn was talking about and what Nicole, Oklahoma Nicole, was talking about. Has anybody ever just considered doing a host an event package at one of those conferences? I know that I did one in Kentucky at the Kentucky conference for the state police and the emergency responders. And by doing the host at an event, I was able to do activities much like we have in the BRCU level 2. And by engaging everybody into those activities, then I could use it as a jump off point to say, hey, you know, this is very similar to what we do in the classroom with our students. You could take an activity out of the level 2 stuff and throw it out there and make it, everybody do it and get them participating, facilitate it, let them learn on their own, and then, you know, kind of use that as a marketing tool to let people know that, you know, we're not just standing up in front of you and lecturing. And that's what they expect at those conferences, is the lecture. When you get facilitating and allow them to participate in something fun, a team building activity, all of a sudden you just change the paradigm and you get buy-in.
That's exactly what I was kind of thinking of. And you know, Bob Simpson and I have been talking about it, and, you know, the segments are kind of short. You know, we couldn't do the whole thing, but we thought we could have part 1 and part 2, you know, and you know, take those select activities and, you know, pieces of the level 2 classroom and conduct them as we do it, just to give people a flavor of what it's all about. Because, you know, there's still people that don't know about our courses and what they do. You know, it's, you know, we think we're out there. I guess within certain circles, people know about us, but I know I'm always encountering people that say, I didn't even know I could take a course. This is great, you know, and so apparently it's not universally known that rider training is a thing.
Well, in Texas, you must take the class to get your license. That's the only pathway.
I forgot that. Actually, I'm going to need a lot of refresher stuff from you, sir. Prepare for an email. I'm coaching this weekend.
So training is mandatory in Texas. Do you consider that a good thing or possibly a bad thing, Kelly?
It's mixed. You know, before they had that law, I think we had about the same number of percentage of people that were riding not licensed. We have the same number of people that die from alcohol-related accidents every year for like 20 years. I don't see a whole lot of difference.
But that kind of gets to the culture thing. A recent question I had in a conversation had to do what's better, mandatory or non-mandatory. And a lot of it goes with both having Duncan here last week for happy hour. And by the way, he sent his regards tonight. He's spending some family time. And looking at the European system of mandatory training, tiered licensing, and what's the other one? Graduated licensing. You know, that's the route that many countries take. In the United States, we're a little bit different in the fact that, you know, the states decide, you know, which path to go. And then to expand it just a little bit more, yesterday at the closing IFZ conference, there was a Dr. Nan Trang from the World Health Organization that is from Vietnam, where they don't have training. You know, you basically grow up on a two-wheeled vehicle, and it's like an innate learning thing. They have different problems than we have. So here in the United States, what is the answer? Is it mandatory, non-mandatory, or none at all? You know, I submit probably combination thereof. What are your thoughts on that?
There's, the mandatory thing from people I've talked to where it is mandatory, the culture of the class changes because people are there because they have to be there instead of there because they want to be there. And so the coach's role may become more difficult because you need to convince the people that are there under duress that this has value to them. So I think in that regard, it's a problem. And I guess there's like structural issues with if it's mandatory, who's paying, and if somebody else is paying, are they going to show up? And it becomes an admin issue. That said, whoops, my screen went away. That said, I lived in Europe for a while, and in Europe, where driver training in general is mandatory, people are much better drivers. There is it's taken more seriously. It's viewed as something that is a privilege rather than, yeah, go ahead and do it. There's a little buy-in financially. In Europe, it costs some bucks to get a license, and my opinion is that the standards are higher. So maybe there is some kind of blend that we could do and bring the
With
level.
the exception of Italy.
Well, they're kind of crazy, but skilled. Crazy, but skilled.
Absolutely.
You ghost that walked by in the camera angle there. I'm not sure.
Guy talking about Italy.
So you just said something that was very correct, because the thing is, a driver's license is a privilege. It's not a given right. You can lose that privilege. Motorcycling is not a given right. That's a privilege. And so the other countries that require it, yeah, they spend a lot of money to get those driver's licenses. Everybody expects that, oh, I show up for the DMV to do my drive test, you're going to pass me because I'm 16. That's not the way that's not the way it is. You have to prove it, and you have to work to keep your license at the same time.
So isn't it a privilege in the United States then?
Yes, to have your driver's license. It's a privilege. It's not a given.
And don't we require people to answer questions and do minimal things?
Minimal. Yeah.
Minimal.
I like that you caught that. Go on.
But the thing is, at any point, like in our state, you turn your license over, it says it belongs to the Department of Public Safety. That driver's license actually does not belong to you. It's a privilege for you to have it, and you have to go by the laws and the regulations to keep it.
You're just trying to take away my freedom.
Then you can always drive without a license. See how that goes.
And I do.
Culture.
Whenever I forget it.
How much education?
I had somebody from Oklahoma call me today because her husband went and took a motorcycle safety class about 2 weeks ago, blamed the excuse that he couldn't get in to get his M endorsement because of COVID, and he got his motorcycle towed away and impounded while he was in Missouri, and wanted me to write a letter for them.
Well, they're trying at least. Sounds like a warrant officer.
How does the additional education requirements in Europe, I wouldn't necessarily say there's a direct correlation of them requiring additional training being the reason that they're safer. It could also be the culture expectations that add to it. You guys were talking about, the United States, people feel because I turned 16, I should be given my license. That's the cultural belief, and that may happen whether there's a strong requirement for education or not.
And so how do we change that culture? Because, we're getting back to epistemic trust here, and we're the subject matter experts, and we're looking to share the knowledge with others and allow the learning.
2 words. Crash up derby. Here are the kids. Here are the keys. Let's just see what happens.
That's
three words, Robin.
words, Robin.
Wait, crash up. No, crash up is one word. Look it up. It's Italian. Again.
There's a dash. It means it's one.
Crash up. It's an accent of the U.
How about demolition derby?
Damn, Skippy, who said that? He's gonna fight all my battles for me.
Texas just started a program where they cross-reference databases. They found out people that had motorcycles registered to them without having a license, and they're sending a little postcard. Said, hey, you know, we noticed you don't have your motorcycle license. We encourage you to do it because you will live longer. It's a nice little postcard they're sending out. I'm interested to see how that helps.
So am I, Kelly.
Does Texas offer any incentives that like oh, you did this, and you know, here's something, or like a discount coupon to the local ice cream, anything? Does Texas do a thing of any kind of you know, bring yourself to this class, no questions asked type stuff?
Yeah, they have a points program. If they catch you, you lose driving points.
You lose points?
They don't have anything like that. And what I've seen is most people just don't care. I think we run about 40% riders are non-licensed, and that's been that way forever. And there's not a huge penalty except when they get stopped for something, but they could ride for a long time and never get stopped.
So, Kelly,
there is a permit system.
Don't be surprised if you get complaints from at least a couple people who say, my spouse didn't know I had a motorcycle until you sent that letter to my house.
All God's children's got problems.
Wisconsin did that same thing and got contacted at least a couple times with that complaint of my spouse didn't know I had a motorcycle. I was keeping it at my buddy's house, and now because of this, you got me in trouble.
That's a
No,
distinct
lying to
possibility.
your spouse about motorcycling got you in trouble.
Well put, Matt. Well put. But we do have a tendency to blame others for our decisions, and you know, when we have to pay the consequences of our decisions, it's easier to blame the person that sends the card, I guess.
Yeah, well, and we, as rider coaches, we all see that. Just, 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, I had a student crash during eval 3 quick stop, and it had just barely sprinkled a little bit. I actually have a picture. You can see dots of water on the pavement, but they are relatively few and far between. And the student got up from the crash and said, well, you got us out here in the rain. The pavement was not wet enough to notably affect traction, but the student had to blame me that we're out there in the rain, and somehow that makes up for
that. Won't bite you in the ass though, will it? I mean, your admins will take care of you on that one. Was it too rainy to ride?
No, and my admins are all about backing me up. I'm just, noting that the student put blame on me because they grabbed the front brake hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, the student who took the e-course that says things about conditions of reduced traction.
Yeah. And then I just reinforce with, well, we just have to be smooth then.
Conditions of reduced logic.
There's that.
M. Scott Peck would call that a character disorder. For those of you who have read the book, A Road Less Traveled. It has nothing to do with motorcycles.
Several times.
I'm only going to read. Is that a PERT book?
No, it is not. It's actually a get your mind straight kind of book. Huh, Kelly?
Yep. You either absolutely do not understand it or absolutely love it.
Don, everything has something to do with motorcycles.
It does. And I'm working on my new book. The title is The Tao of Motorcycle.
I'd love to read it.
Not the Tao of Pooh. That's funny. Who said the way earlier?
Say that again, please.
Somebody earlier said the way. This is the way to do it.
So what are we, the Mandalorian now? Who was it?
I don't know. Give up being an expert. It may be John Wesley. John, did you say that? The way?
It might have been me talking about, when you're first presented with the curriculum that, this is the way.
Yeah.
The best way. That's why we do it. But, I think people aren't expecting that the way is flexible and that change happens because of new information and different viewpoints.
The Buddhists say the way is the way, it's the Tao of things. And you say the balance, as things change, as the balance changes and we have new information, it takes us in a different direction. And so the balance changes the way that we have to go. It's like dropping a stone in a stream. The water goes around the stone because it's the new way. And I thought that was very telling that, we really have to give up being the expert and start just being part of the system that makes the future experts. And none of us may ever reach that. Hey, Mark, are you still here? What did, it came from the book we were looking at last year where, you never reach perfection. What's the saying?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't remember. But basically, you visit it once in a while, but there's no way to stay there.
Yeah, you have a really good day because everything's firing and the way is really good, but you only visit there, Then you have to go back to trying harder and learning more because you can't possibly stay there. The way always changes. So I think that was a telling phrase for you to use. And I wanted to emphasize that we really do have to give up being in front of people thinking we're the expert, knowing that we're not. It's impossible. You may reach it there one moment and then it's gone because things change. Now I'm preaching. Put Christopher to sleep, I think.
But we get coaches having that attitude, and then and it always strikes me as odd that the coaches who are resistant to any sort of professional development or extension of themselves are surprised that their students aren't interested in coming back for further courses or extending themselves. And the coaches express frustration at this, why can't we fill BRC2s and ARCs when they themselves have the exact same behavior or practice?
How do we fix that?
Very, very, very slowly.
It's a culture shift. So I have to ask, and don't be worried about saying yes or no. How many people had the opportunity to see the IFC conference early yesterday morning? Anybody? All right.
It was way too early for me.
I know it was way too early for you. Even MSF attended by video that they pre-videotaped.
I think I saw your notice about it this morning, so I was a little late to the party.
I hope, and I haven't gone out to check today because I kind of took the day off to do some projects around the house, but I hope they'll be at least putting that video out. It was about 2 hours. And I wanted to share that they kind of had a round table with several people from around the world, but notably they had somebody from IMMA and ACEM. And I'm not even going to try to tell you what the acronyms mean, other than ACEM is the motorcycle industry in Europe. So it's a consortium of smart people, kind of like the Motorcycle Industry Council. And the IMMA, I guess I can say it, the International Motorcycle Manufacturers Association. So kind of like RMIC. And they put out two really decent publications. The ASEM put out the Safe Ride to the Future 2.0, the motorcycle industry's commitment to road safety. And then the IMMA put out Safer Motorcycling. And I mentioned these two things in comparison or contrast to what we saw with NHTSA's 5-year plan for motorcycle safety. And I invite you to go out to the link I've posted. I gave you a password. It is password protected. To just read those documents and kind of compare them in your own mind, because I really do believe we need to build a stronger voice in the riders education community and probably share with some people how we see rider education as a good countermeasure to the future. And I will hit on a couple things that were said. I already mentioned Dr. Nan Tran from the World Health Organization was part of the round table. He was rather interesting in the fact that he wasn't so much a behavioral guy, he was a systems guy, talking about the future of mobility being multimodal, meaning motorcycles are part of a system of transportation that would not otherwise be recognized. So he was very into it, mostly because he's got a perspective. He lives in where's WHO in Switzerland, and he is from Vietnam, so he understands the differences of mobility in all these different countries. And then besides the separate modalities, he was really heavy into talking about noise reduction, which leads you to think a couple different directions about how we treat exhaust in America.
Electric.
Or the electrical future, which seems to be very popular in Europe, at least from my personal experiences.
Loud colors save lives.
Except if you talk to Dan Patterson. And if you've read his article in the SMSA latest spotlight, it puts some doubt onto conspicuity and how we use it. So where I was going at with this, and there was a guy from FIM there too, Jasper Christensen, and he was talking about micro-mobility, meaning the electric bikes and electric scooters that you're seeing in all the major cities as being a part of two-wheeled safety in the future. The biggest thing I got out of this was, you know, in the past there has been a heavy push, and this is their perspective for the next 10 years, from 2020 to 2030. There's a lot of talk about connectivity of the automated vehicles on the road, and how they're beginning to think that motorcycles aren't a part of that because of the human aspect of it. And so something they hit on really hard from my perspective, my opinion, or my interpretation, is they're really starting to consider the human element more than they have in the past, which just makes me excited, because when I was there 2 years ago in Germany at the conference, they didn't want to touch the human element at all. And so kind of off of our perspective of last week's happy hour, it seems like maybe behavioral intervention seems to be gaining some speed, which is again why I bring to you, maybe we should be a louder voice and kind of give input to the world, or at least the United States, on how much rider education can make a difference in behavioral interventions is one of the best countermeasures. So I dropped that big thing on you. I'm sorry I took up so much time with it. Wanted to get it out before I forgot about it. Likewise, I have put my research paper out on this site. Please don't share it at this point because it's still under review for a journal, but it gives you an idea of the presentation I gave at IFC, and hopefully a lot of our discussions are either supported or questioned by reading that document, if you so desire. And I'll leave it at that. What else can we talk about?
Well, Don, there's also I tried to find it on my news feed. There are also some concerns being raised over in the UK about the possibility of motorcycles being, quite frankly, eliminated from traffic. Did you see that one too?
I've heard some talk about it, and I think they talked about it a little bit in IFC, but I don't give it too much weight.
We'll just have to send the guys from Abate over there and check it out.
Do you think they can stir it up over there?
Well, loud pipes save lives.
I would love to read the article if you can find it, Ron.
I will certainly try to do that, sir.
You know how I am. I'm a fiend when it comes to reading that kind of stuff.
I'll keep looking.
Robin had a great article this week. Anybody read that? Popped up on my Facebook feed about buying new motorcycles.
Used or new. It was ill-timed. I just want the commission. Yeah.
So tell us about.
Well, okay. So how did this go? End of a class, student asked me about what bike should I get. Of course, we don't want to field that topic too, obviously. But I said, you should go stand on a lot of bikes, or yeah, go stand on a lot of bikes, as many at the same time as, no, go sit on a lot of bikes and see what's comfortable for you, and think about what you went through today and what kind of power you feel like you can handle on the displacement. And that was it. I was just go do that. And I started thinking about it. And there's this really great satire Craigslist ad for a motorcycle. I'll see if I can find that, but it just talks about, when I say never been tipped, meaning crash through the back of an F-150, need to get rid of this bike, low ball at $4,500, and it's like a rat bobber chopper cafe. And there's all these really bad bikes out there that people might consider buying. So I just thought about new riders and what steps might you want to take to research the prospective bikes you're going to consider purchasing. So you don't just end up with a giant paperweight that you can't, not one, you can't sell, two, you can't get parts for, three, you got taken on in terms of money. So I was like, here's a really good way to figure out what is a good price, what's a good bike, what is going to be the smartest purchase. And but that article doesn't belong to me. That belongs to Twisted Road. I wrote it for them because I'm freaking poor and I needed it.
You get paid for that?
Yeah, sometimes. Anybody need that? Yeah. Hey, hi. I'm broken, can type better than the average bear. Hire me. Anyhow, that was the whole article, was just going into detail about looking for, okay, considering what bike is right for you, and then learning as much about that bike as you can, finding out what difficulties there are in maintaining it. Do you want to go to a dealership, or what dealership is close? Are they any good? Are they reputable? What are the reviews? Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, thanks for the compliment. Thanks for bringing it up. Appreciate that. Ego stroked.
Yeah, stroked.
You know, I see that as a common weakness in rider coaches, is a lack of knowledge in what's out there. I had observed a coach, student ask him, is a Suzuki FZ650, is that a good bike to start on? Which is probably one of the best bikes on the planet.
Yeah.
The rider coach says, I don't have a clue. I said, all I ride is Harleys.
Yeah, we had that. I mean, so when I was getting three-wheel trained, I had a really good time with the folks I got to train with. And one of them, who I thought, oh, this guy's going to be a big mouth. He's a big mouth. He's this and that. And he came in on a Harley and yada. He's actually really totally cool. But at one point he said, you know, something about a class. And we had a lot of different kinds of bikes out. We had a big variety of bikes out. I said, oh, yeah, what did you have? He says, well, we had, you know, the something glide, and we had the tri-glide, and we had the police this. I said, okay, so when you say variety, you mean you had one brand and they were all Harleys, which that isn't intended to ruffle any feathers in here, but variety doesn't usually come from one set of ergonomics. Does that sound right? Does that seem fair?
So that brings up a great question that I've been debating for about 3 years, and you know, the experts are here. So we predominantly do BRCUs, and we have more often than not novice riders coming through, or people with little to no experience. What kind of bikes do you recommend? And are you tied to recommending one particular brand because of where you work?
Well, I tell them what they
Bikes by
need.
brand. I tell them, hey, you know, my experience getting a bike when I was a new rider, I didn't know what I didn't know, you know. And my first bike was an 800 Shadow. I bought it as a leftover. It was an 88. I bought it in 90. And I was debating between the Shadow and the Magna. And I went with the Shadow because it was 4 speeds. I said, I'm new, I'll get 4 speeds. It'll be easier than 5 speeds. You know, I liked how it looked. I thought, ooh, I love this bike. I'm going to have it forever, you know. And I rode it for a year, and I was like, whoa, this is not the right bike for me. I need something sportier. So I tell students, hey, you know what? Go start with a bike. You can't go wrong starting small, because if you decide that you like motorcycling and want to get another bike, there's always a new rider coming along behind you who will buy a small motorcycle. You know, there's good turnover there, and you'll know better in a year than you know right now what kind of bike you want.
I will say that, is anybody in here a regular Car Reviews YouTube channel fan?
I've seen, yeah, I was just watching some of his stuff last night, the M35A2 videos.
Just Google regular Car Reviews R6. And if you look up the R6 episode of regular Car Reviews, that is some of the funniest noise you'll see. He goes into detail. This is a while ago, but he says, like, okay, look, if you're a new rider, just get a Ninja 250 or a Honda Rebel. Just get a, Suzuki, Kawasaki Ninja 250 or a Honda Rebel, because that's a bike you can buy for $1,000 and sell for $1,000. You know, it's going to pass through very, very safely and securely. But then he does this whole thing about the R6 is just absolutely ridiculous and worth watching. It's a good laugh.
But for recommending a bike for a new rider, when they say, what kind of bike should I get? The first question out of my mouth is, well, do you know what kind of riding you want to do? And being new riders, often they don't. So the next thing I say is, you know, find something that's in your price range that you can afford. Hit up Craigslist. You know, if you're not sure what kind of ride you want to do, I mean, I don't say this directly, but buy an old UJM, something mid-'80s Honda Nighthawk.
See, but then are you going to deal with the student that comes back and is crying and he says, "You convinced me to buy a 1976 CB360." You know the bike? You know what I'm talking about? It's a nightmare
I know exactly
machine.
what you're talking about, and I would never say that. But, you know, if honestly, any bike that you find out there for $800 or $1,000, you can probably ride for a year, figure out what you want to do, and then sell it for
Totally.
$800 or $1,000.
Totally spot on. I agree.
I bought my first bike, a Nighthawk 650. It was 22 years old at the time, something like that. I bought it for $850, rode it for a decade, sold it for $1,100.
Perfect.
So, would you recommend, and I know where you come from, Matt, so don't bullshit me on this. Would you recommend a 650 for a beginning rider?
So, depends on the 650. And SV 650 is a lot. Somebody mentioned that before. That's a lot of bike. A Nighthawk 650 like I had that makes 70 horsepower, it's super docile. But it worked well for me as a experienced dirt rider, but it's super docile. If you don't whack the throttle open, it's pretty easy to ride, but it still made enough power to be fun for a decade. I only sold it because I got other bikes, and then I found a bike I wanted to buy, and that's why I sold it.
There's also the cruiser rule too. I think I recommended, like, if you're looking for some low displacement, a cruiser may have an effect. Like the Yamaha V-Star 650 is a total dog. So, you know, it's kind of like a 400-ish thing, but just, yeah, sit on a lot of bikes.
You know what most of us need actually is a 250. We all want something more, but that 250 would serve most of us.
I know a lot of experienced riders who commute on 250s because they're fun and they're great with gas, and, you know, they work good. And, you know, people I think get hung up in their heads, and their friends talk them into, oh, you have to get a, you know, gigantic motorcycle. And for most people, it's overkill from what they actually need. You know, there's a little bit of ego there and some stroking and bragging rights, but the reality is they'd be just as well with some medium-sized motorcycle that's going to be more forgiving of the new rider mistakes that they're likely to make. And I just had a few conversations this week. I had a woman come in. She passed the course. I knew she had a 1200 Sportster. I forget how she acquired it. And, you know, she passed the course, but her skills were not great. And I said, you know what? I think you're going to find your Sportster is big for you. I think you might be better off, you know, scaling back for a little bit, whether you keep the Sportster in the garage and get some experience on something smaller, you know, or you know, you could decide to venture out on the Sportster in a controlled manner and kind of, you know, feel your way and get some more comfort level. But, you know, I'd hate for you to get scared off of riding a motorcycle because your bike was too intimidating for you, and then it becomes no fun and motorcycling's done, you know. So I think starting with a bike that suits your skill level goes a long way towards letting people stay in the sport and grow in the sport and carry on.
I think that's absolutely true. Like Don said, you know, I started on that 650. I had several years of previous dirt riding experience. So I had throttle control down and clutch control down. I had all that squared away. So yeah, it's definitely, if you don't have the smoothness and those fine skills, even an old Nighthawk 650 or a Nighthawk 700 or whatever is still a fair bit of motorcycle. But I've found that as I've grown as a motorcyclist, I am currently lusting after a Grom because they're just so much fun to bash around on, you know?
I love that thought.
Require that you actually ride them. You know, I have people come in, experienced riders. I can't do the road test on my whatever big bike because it won't do the circles and figure eights. You know, so I'll come and take a lesson with you guys prior to taking a road test, but they don't actually know how to ride. They get on their big bike and they kind of idle around the corners, And when they tried to do that on the little bikes, they couldn't. So in some respects, the little bikes require a better skill level than the big bikes. And if you can do it on the little bike, those skills transfer well to the bigger bikes.
So this goes along in this vein, and just, you know, research fodder here. How many of you rode smaller or non-street worthy or legal motorcycles when you first started? Or two-wheelers?
Me.
Okay, I got John, Mike, Matt, Rita.
Some of us were old enough, that was the only option we had.
Yeah, I mean, I had this piece of metal with two small wheels and a Briggs & Stratton engine on it that, you know, I can't tell you how many times I had to weld the frame back together. And hell, I drove it to my first real job on the farm roads because I could get away with it. People don't do that now. They don't learn on things that are smaller. They jump right into these larger motorcycles. And so when we talk about being trustworthy subject matter experts, authentically, are we doing our students any justice by telling them, yeah, get whatever fits? Or are we better to analyze who the customer is, the student, and recommend a smaller bike while they're feeling their oats on two wheels before they go on and spend huge amounts of money, hurt themselves or somebody else, and decide motorcycling is not for them?
Not to be specific, you know, buy this bike, buy that bike, that's not my role. But, you know, I paint with a broader brush and say, you know, you can't go wrong starting small, because you either decide you like motorcycling and that smaller bike will be forgiving of the mistakes that you make and not as intimidating, and you'll have a good time and progress and want to move on to a bigger motorcycle. Or maybe you decide, I hate motorcycling. I only ride, you know, once every 2 months. It's not worth it to me. I get out of the sport. It's easy to unload that small bike. And if you decide that you want to move on, no injury, no foul, you can move on and buy something bigger, sell your little bike, and you've had a good time and you haven't ruined it for yourself by getting in over your head. I had another lady call me this week. She had taken the course earlier this year. She put a whole bunch of miles on a smaller motorcycle. She got a bigger motorcycle, and now she was feeling like, whoa, this is really big. and you know, she wanted to get some advanced training. And I said, you know, really, what would benefit you most right now is to just go and spend some time on your new big motorcycle. You know, take yourself out to a parking lot or, you know, a quiet road, and just get used to it, because you've had the experience on your small bike. You kind of know what you're doing. Don't freak out. Go and apply that experience to your new motorcycle and get comfortable with your new motorcycle, and then come back and get some more, you know, come into a BRC2. But if you're not comfortable on your motorcycle, the BRC2 it's not going to help you. You know, you're going to be afraid of it and not be comfortable doing the exercises. And, you know, so she's going to go out and play. I said, hey, you know, go to a parking lot. And, you know, we talked about some things she could practice in a parking lot to, you know, get her groove on, so to speak.
What's her name, Stella?
Go ahead.
Working at a Harley Davidson dealership, I have to kind of tiptoe a little bit when students are asking about what to start on. And with Harley Davidson ceasing production of the 500 version of the street, makes it even a little trickier. But a lot of times I'll ask, what are you looking at, to see what their mindset is or what their initial thoughts are. But on the occasion that I get a class where at least on the first days, they get heavily into discussion about the fact that an 883 Sportster just isn't big enough and isn't really going to be road worthy. I'll usually show up to class on my 400 and just leave it at that. And sometimes, you know, and it says 400 on the side, so it's pretty clear. And sometimes somebody will ask about it, but I just give them something to think about.
At one of the dealerships where I have worked in the past, when they've done the dealer tour at a Harley dealership, they, one of the sales guys would tell the students, look, after you get done with the class, you go out and you buy whatever motorcycle you want, Honda, Yamaha, whatever you want. Buy what you want, ride it, but still come and visit us. Because I'd love to hear about your stories about where you rode your motorcycle. You may not want a Harley as soon as you get done with this class, but I know eventually you'll want one. And when you're ready for your Harley, come see me.
That just made me want a Harley. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do.
But I just thought it was a great approach to say, hey, go buy whatever motorcycle you want after the class, ride it, come tell me stories about the rides you go on, and then when you're ready to buy a Harley, I'm happy to help you.
That's nice. I like that. It's friendly, you know. And I tell students about rider coaches I know who are very experienced riders. They have big motorcycles, but they still have their small bikes. They commute on their 250. It's great on gas. It's fun. You know, they enjoy it. And, you know, I kind of promote that. And I have a coach friend that had been riding a Virago, I think a Virago 1100, bought a Road King. Put 72 miles on the Road King in a parking lot. She can make that bike do whatever she wants, you know? And I just say, hey, you know, when you get what you get, go out and practice, because practice makes perfect. And, you know, even experienced riders, if you put in the time, you're going to be able to do good things.
So that's where I got it from, Rita.
Got what from?
The approach. Teaching at Harley Davidson. Let them know that they can go to any bike, but when they're done, when you're ready for the Harley, come on back and see us.
Before then, you know, we're all, it should be non-denominational.
You just said it like the commercial, man.
We're all a big family. When Kelly said, nobody really needs more than 250, I agree. I mean, back in the day, a 650 was a massive motorcycle. And now, if you tell somebody you have a 650, oh, you got a girl's bike. And that drives me crazy when they say, oh, that's just a girl's bike.
Whatever. Okay, so Maggie's 675 Street Triple R is 0 to 70 in first gear and will outrun my R1200 RS in first in a heartbeat. That bike scares the living hell out of me. Yeah, I will argue that to the ground.
Yeah.
The funny part with that is, just imagine. I've had situations where I'm on a freeway and then get these sport bikes whizzing by you until you get on a cloverleaf. Guess who's passing them and just looking like, what the heck? That's the fastest you could turn that thing?
Right. There's a lot of it out there. You know, it's like they're that's like my demographic, I guess, is like, I like cornering on a sport bike. And all I see when I see that is, wow, you sure are good in a straight line.
I was a track day instructor for a number of years, and we had a track day for rider coaches. And you know what? It was embarrassing. There was a bunch of rider coaches that do not know how to go around corners.
Slow, look, press, roll. I don't know.
Those that can't do, sometimes just teach.
Resistance to learning.
The engineering world in Houston died in the early 2000s. So I sold motorcycles for a couple of years, Hondas and Yamahas. And it was an ethical dilemma that came up when young sport bike guys would come in and said, I don't want a beginner bike like a 600cc sport bike, which will typically do 10-second quarter miles and do 160 miles an hour. I need a leader bike, and I'm going to buy a leader bike. Can you help me?
And so what was your ethical answer?
I really struggled with it for a while, and I came to the conclusion that they're going to buy whether I sell to them or not. So I said, let me tell you about the class. Let's talk about the class. And, you know, I think there's, I can't argue with them a whole lot. Houston has a lot of freeways or a lot of 60, 70 mile an hour riding or faster. And if you're with a bunch of guys on leader bikes and you have a 600 and they accelerate, you're going to have to downshift to it 3 times. It's a problem, but they're going to buy it no matter what you say or what you want to do.
So has anybody ridden the new KTM 200?
No, but I'm anxious.
Me too. I'm thinking that may be a nice get around town bike.
The 390 is better, I think.
Wait, have you been on the 200?
I have not. I have not ridden a 390. I have a KTM, a Super Dugar. It's 1,000.
Well, but then you, okay, don't digress, because then you, sir, have no base of comparison yet. Go on.
I have an opinion.
You predict it's going to be a dud.
The 200s it'll be nice to get one in as a training bike. The seats are narrower than the 390s and they sit, I think, about 1 inch shorter on top of it. So it'll be fun. I enjoy having the 390s for student bikes, and the 200s should be fun as well.
I've almost pulled the trigger on a 390 like twice, but you know.
Although the first thing I'd do if I bought one for my fleet would be change the seat to something softer.
Wow, that's the problem with the bike I did get.
That's the problem with every KTM ever built.
Well, I didn't get KTM. I got a Ducati.
I had a KTM Supermoto. My joke was what the seat lacks in width, it makes up for in hardness.
Exactly. They're only mildly more comfortable than sitting on the edge of a 2x4.
Well, I'm spent. You guys have racked my brains tonight. Ron, did you find that article yet?
Yes, sir, I did, and I forwarded it to you via email.
All right, thank you, sir. You couldn't just send me the link, huh?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Could I? I don't know. Probably that's how it came out.
Yeah, well, it's all good.
I have fun in these things, y'all.
I'm lucky I found it. Hey, Robin, where's the cot, buddy? Where's your cot?
Are you talking about the
Is that where you live now?
Yes, well, you know, the wife and I had a chat, and she seems to feel this would be more appropriate. You know, the great outdoors. I showed you the sunset there. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. This is so we had, and I know we're just shooting the shit now, but I had right where you're sitting, the computer is where the tent was, but that's grass, and this park is very kind. If I were to set this garage up over there, it'd kill the grass. So they have the patio section here. So I'm just weighing it down, set it all back up. The bikes will go right here, and the awning from our trailer basically arches out and covers a section of it's gonna be a pretty good setup. So that way where you guys are is where I'm gonna set the little outdoor patio, and right over there, that sunset you saw is what Maggie and I'll get to look at every night. So until they kick us out. Oh yeah, that's me. I am Mr. Sweetness. I am. Sorry to say, but listen up, kid. You were doing pretty good during exercise too, but you kind of suck now, and I just don't generally like you. Go home, cool? But come back next time and give us some more money. Thanks. That's my new counsel out. Just for sweetness, just for the sweet factor. That's what I'm looking for. You guys aren't waiting for me to close this thing out. I hope not.
No.
If Robin would just leave, we could talk about all the real things we intended to get into tonight. But yeah, it's not the worst setup. I like having everything I need in one location, that's for sure.
Well, I see people are popping off rather quickly here, and I know
That's me.
not like Robin pop off, but they're leaving the conference.
I haven't even opened up here yet.
Really? What a guy.
Yeah.
I know that there's a debate tonight that some people, if you're politically minded, it may be the best debate of the whole political season compared to the other one I saw. So I think we're going to shut this down a little bit early tonight. I know I got some phone calls to make, some family issues to deal with. I want to
Don't
thank
forget
you all.
don't forget to consider your drinking games for the debate tonight.
Please send those by email.
Later, y'all.
Take care. Thanks again. Good turnout tonight. Good discussions. I'm still looking for a good topic for the end of the month tribe talk. If anybody wants to, share something or actually, facilitate a topic, I'm still open to that.
Stability.
Yeah.
But not only do you want a topic, but you actually want a good topic.
Well, no, I'll take any topic at this point, so I don't have to do it. But, I always can come up with something. I just never know if it's received well.
Hey, Don.
Yes, sir.
How about communicating with a mask for hearing impaired rider coaches? Has that been discussed?
Briefly, sort of, when Chris Horton provided our class on teaching deaf students.
No, Chris Perry.
Perry, I'm sorry. Sorry, Christopher Horton.
We're good with Chris. It's all good.
The other
I haven't
Chris.
had the exciting endeavor of teaching a hearing impaired student yet.
There was a lot of traffic on Facebook this last week. I think that somebody, or maybe it was last week, somebody had some difficulties with their first class with hearing impaired. So it may be another good topic to approach. What are your thoughts, Kelly?
I'm talking about rider coaches who are hearing impaired like me. I have crappy hearing.
Huh?
And I depend on that. I depend on reading lips for a lot of information.
We can only hope that this goes away soon. Anecdotal information. I've had 2, 3, 4 family members who tested positive for COVID within the last 3 weeks. All of them are doing well. They're beyond. They still test positive, but they're beyond any infection, and it seemed like they got through it rather well.
I had COVID in June.
Yeah, and
I survived.
Well, bad flu symptoms, sort of.
Just a couple of really crappy weeks. I did not have any fever, joint pain, major headaches, continuous coughing. That's about it.
So, not to downplay any of the severity that we've had with this crisis, but I'm beginning to think that, eventually we're all going to have to deal with, what we have and just move on with life. It gets back to that fear and anxiety thing. Humans are resilient. I believe that. Let's just hope that this gets over soon so we can get on with bigger and better things.
I hope so
sure
too.
hope so.
But I have lost people to this.
Have you?
Yes. So I get it. We can just hope that the science is going to find its way.
Yeah.
I've lost people, plural. So.
And that's the sad part, is you just never know who or how it's going to affect. And
I've
so,
not lost anyone to this, but I live in currently one of the worst hotspot counties in the United States.
me too.
So getting a positive caused me a little fear spike.
Sure. Sure. As it would anybody. As it would anybody. So with that, now we are, exactly 2 hours, and everybody have a good rest of the week. Hope to see you here and there. If not, I'll see you next week on Happy Hour. Take care of yourself, and I'm going to tell you something. I don't want you to take it the wrong way. I love you. I want you to have a good time. Take care of yourself. Don't smile, Rita. Just stop.
I always smile, you know that.
Uh-huh. Thanks for being here. Have a good week. Hope to see you soon.
Thanks for making all this craziness happen, Don.
Word. Take care.
Thanks. It was good to be here.
Good night.